Today is Saturday and we're going to be working on making a new pig house for the little pigs. We're going to take you through that with us, and we'll probably show you in there someplace the, I think it's 12 now, maybe 14 little chicks that hatched yesterday and last night. So come along with us and see what we're doing.
Morning, everybody. This morning we're going to build the pig's house. Right now we have a borrowed dog pen or dog box that one of the neighbors gave us. We just finished the pig pen last night, we just finished the pig pen last week. Now we're going to build their hut, and it's going to look similar to the one that we've already done. It is going to be slightly different because we're using free tin that we took down an old dilapidated horse stall down the road, and the guy that had it gave us the metal and gave us some of the lumber, and we're going to try to repurpose that. We're repurposing some old fence boards for the inside of it. We did have to buy some, we didn't have to, I had 2x4s, but I wanted to get pressure treated at least for the outside framework or trim work, because it is going to be exposed. This is very simple to do. It's not typical construction framing. It's very basic. I'll go through and show everybody how you can do this. It's simple. I pre-cut a lot of the lumber just to make it easier to put it together. I think we're going to put it right here in this location. This is the metal that we're going to use. It's just old tin. I did buy new tin to put on the roof. I want to keep it as dry as possible. Because these sheets are 2 feet, this one's going to be a little bit taller than the other one. Those sheets were 3 feet wide, so I built everything to fit one sheet. With this, I'll put 2 sheets up the sides and 2 sheets up the front and the back, and then it'll be 4 feet in the back and slightly over 4 feet in the front. I'm going to leave the gap on the side at the top to have air circulation going through there. It's mainly to keep them out of the wind and keep them out of the rain. We're using some old 4x4 pressure treated that we took down an old dog kennel, saved that lumber. We're going to reuse those and repurpose it here for the shelter. That way the 4x4s will be in ground contact. As far as cutting the boards, these were 10 feet. I cut them down to fit an 8-foot metal panel plus the 3.5 inches on either side. So it'd be 8 feet 7 inches total length for the long ones. That way I can put a 3.5 2x4 here in the front. The metal will go in between that, so none of the rough edges will be exposed for the pigs. And it acts as almost like a trim board, but it's also structural. And then I'll run a 2x4 across the side. These, I could have done a lap joint. I'm a little lazy this morning, so I didn't feel like doing that. What I'm going to do is just butt these together. So the side pieces will be in here. They're cut at 4 feet. So it's actually going to be 8.5 or 8 feet 7 inches long by 4 feet 7 inches deep, because you have to take into account the 3.5 inch thickness of this board. So I'll put the 4-foot pieces inside. I'm going to use structural screws that are 6 inches long that'll go straight through this, tie it in to the side. And then when I put the boards, fence boards basically, we're going to use those on the inside because the pigs can go through this metal. So for structural stability and to give me something to add, screw this metal to, I'm going to run fencing boards along the inside. These are rough cut poplar boards that I bought probably 2 years ago, and they've been sitting in the barn. I'm going to run them the full length so that this joint will be here. The barn boards are going to come and overlap this joint, so it's going to give it a little more structural integrity so that the joints aren't lined up, and it'll keep it from moving. And you'll see all that when we put it together. For the height, we have, I believe it's 52 inches for the front, and that's to be able to go down the front of this and to be able to get 2 sheets of this in. I didn't want to have to cut the metal, so I'm trying to do this with the least amount of work possible. The back ones are 58. I did a 6 inch difference between the front and the back, so it's enough drop to get rain to run off. The boards are simply 55 inches for the piece that goes across the front. The side boards that we're going to use for keeping the pigs inside and not going through the metal, the 2 sides and the front are all 55 inches wide. And the back, I haven't measured yet. I'm going to build it, put all the other 3 sides on, then I'll measure the distance for the back, because the problem is this is all rough cut lumber. None of this is the same thickness, so I can't cut every single piece the same because it may not fit and it'll throw my sides out. So as I get everything put together, I'll measure. We have 3 boards for the pig area, so when they rub against it, and then I have 1 running across the top to hold the top together. And I'll have to measure every single one of those independently and then cut them so that they fit each space. So as we do this, we'll keep you posted, and as you see it happen, you're going to understand what I'm talking about now. But basically, that's all the measurements. If you want to make one of these yourself, just find some old lumber, scavenge what you can, look for people knocking stuff down, or like us, if you want to go out and buy a couple new pieces, get a couple new pieces. I can tell you the pressure treated 10-footers are running almost $13 a piece right now. So we're trying to not buy lumber if we don't have to. All right, yeah. We're starting the bottom framework. It's all pressure treated, and I've already pre-drilled the 4x4s. I'm using 6-inch timber locks just to lock them together. The actual fence boards and the 2x4s are really what's going to add the structural stability to this, but I do want the bottom to stay pretty tight because the pigs are going to be walking on it. And the ground's uneven. I pre-cut everything the same dimensions. So in theory, that should help keep everything square. It's a pig hut. I'm a little particular anyway, but it's a pig hut. As long as it keeps them dry, out of the wind, warm in the winter, it'll be just fine. Now I sank those below the surface because I'm actually going to put 2x4s on the outside here as the framework. All right. So there's the frame. You see how big it is. You could, I guess I could get a shovel and take some of this dirt out and level it up. I'm really not worried about it. The ground is sloping away from the entrance of the door, which will also help shed the rain off of the roof. I think we're just going to leave it right the way it is. Pigs don't care if it's level. All right, we're going to put the corner posts together. I have the shorter ones in the back, taller ones in the front. I'm going to screw those together first. And what I want to point out, if you've ever noticed on somebody's wooden deck and the deck boards are curling up on the ends, it's because they probably did not turn the cup of the wood down so that when it starts to dry and warp, it tends to move. So if you notice the circles or the rings on the wood, they usually always, the closer you get to the center or the further out, sometimes it's hard to tell. But the closer to the center of the tree, they're going to be a little bit more round. But the cup of the wood is going this way, which means when this dries, it's going to curl this way. So if you had the board screwed in this way and it was screwed into something here, this would pull out and this would pull out because the board's going to curl like that. So what you want to do to minimize the cupping is keep the curl of the wood facing into what you're screwing. So that way we're going to use screws, so it won't pull out as bad, but if you're doing nails, it would pop the nails right out. So when we put these edges together, I want the cup of the wood facing in, and then on this one I want the cup of the wood facing in, and we're just going to line them up like this. I'm going to clamp them together because it's just easier to hold them when I'm running screws down the side. These aren't expensive clamps, so don't laugh. This one's actually not bad. Let me do it on the wrong side here. I'm doing them on top of this 4x4 because we're actually building this stuff on the dirt, and nothing's level. That'll be enough to hold it together while I screw a couple of these in. And you basically go along I just put 5 in there. That's probably all we'll need. Using 2.5-inch exterior screws. Alright, there's a corner post. Now, when you're doing this, all of my measurements were based on the flat part being right here and then the shorter part being on the side. So when you put these on, you don't want to turn them upside down and have it backwards where your measurements are going to be off. So the solid 2x4 is going to face on the front. That gives me 8 feet from the inside of this to the inside of the other post. That way that metal will fit right in there and I won't have to cut it. And then these parts here. Now if we come over here, I already did one side. And like I said, we're building on uneven ground, so if you follow me over here, I cut all of these boards. Remember I told you at 55 inches. They're all cut at 55 inches. So I used a large framing square to get us just about where we need to be. And then since all these are cut the same, if I line them all up and make everything level, in theory, this should be relatively level and plumb to itself, not necessarily to the ground. We put a board at the bottom. I use a 2x4 as a spacer. I'm coming up 3 boards. That should be plenty high enough for the pigs to push against so they don't push the metal out. And then I'm using this top one as basically my top ledge or top plate. And then what I'll do, I have to go through our junk pile. I'm going to run the board like this down the side, and then we'll run one across there. I'm going to leave this gap open. This area from here down is 4 feet, so 2 of those panels will fit up the side. I won't have to cut the metal, I'll only have to cut the length. And then this will be part of the roof system. Of course, longer, I'm going to let it overhang on the front, and then we'll run, basically just make a square and then run a piece down the center, and that will be enough to hold the tin. And we're using old tin on the outside. The pigs don't care if it's rusty looking. I got brand new metal for the top, so that way it's the same metal that we used on the other one, and it should keep them drier. I don't want it to leak. I don't care if there's holes, old screw holes and stuff in the sides. Doesn't bother me. I don't think it bothers the pigs.
So here we are so far. I know we kind of jumped a little bit because last we showed you we were putting the corners on, and you see obviously all 4 corners are on. And then we
Started putting the fence boards on.
Started screwing the fence boards in. We ended up going 4 high instead of 3 high. This pig hut's a lot taller than the other one. They're screwed on the inside of the corners, and then on the outside of these middle beams. After we got those all screwed on,
Put the back metal on.
we went ahead and put the back metal on. And then we started on the frame for the roof. We did the backboard first, then we cut the sideboards, and then one across the front.
One in the middle to support the roof tin.
And then we put one down the middle so the roof tin will have a support. So this is all scrap lumber that we've collected, except for the 2x4s we used for the corners. We did get the pressure treated for the corners. But everything else is just scrap that we had on hand that Joe's been saving for projects, and it comes in handy. So there it is so far. We've got to get the tin on this one side yet, and in the front, and then on the roof. Storm seems to be rolling in, so I'm not sure if we're going to be able to finish this tonight or not, but we will show it to you when it's finished. Wave to